Here's a fact that sounds impossible at first. You can throw away most of the weights in a trained neural network, and it barely notices. Large models are wildly over-parameterized, stuffed with connections that sit near zero and contribute almost nothing to the final answer. So why keep paying to store and run them? Pruning is the art of finding those dead connections and deleting them, leaving a smaller, cheaper model that's nearly as accurate as the original. It's one of the oldest and most powerful tricks in model compression, and it hides a surprise or two. Let's see how it works. At its core, pruning is a simple loop you can run again and again. We start from a fully trained model and tighten it step by step. Follow the cycle. Start with a fully trained network, one that already reaches the accuracy you want. This matters because we need real, meaningful weights before we can judge which ones actually pull their weight and which are just dead space taking up room. Now score every weight by importance. The simplest and most common measure is sheer magnitude, the idea that a weight close to zero has little influence on the output, so it matters least. More refined scores look at each weight's effect on the loss, but plain magnitude works remarkably well. Then remove the least important ones, setting them to zero and pruning them out of the network. You can cut a small slice or a huge fraction in a single pass. Remarkably, you can often delete the majority of weights this way with only a tiny drop in accuracy. Finally, the smaller network gets fine-tuned for a while, letting the surviving weights adjust and recover any accuracy that was lost. Then, if you want to go further, you repeat the whole cycle, score, remove, retrain, and the model shrinks gradually. So why does this work so well? Here's the contrast that makes pruning possible. Keeping every weight sounds safe, but it's deeply wasteful. A trained network is riddled with redundancy, whole clusters of connections that barely nudge the output, plus weights sitting so close to zero they contribute nothing at all. You're paying full price in memory, compute, and energy to carry parameters the model doesn't really use, and that bill shows up every single time you run it. Here pruning takes the opposite bet. Delete the low-importance connections, then fine-tune what remains to recover the lost accuracy. The payoff can be striking, and it inspired the famous lottery ticket hypothesis, the idea that hiding inside every big network is a small subnetwork that could have reached the same accuracy trained entirely on its own, if only you had found it first. Boil it down, and 3 ideas capture pruning. It removes the least important weights from an over-parameterized model. Trained networks carry far more parameters than they need, so scoring connections and deleting the weakest shrinks the model with surprisingly little damage to what it can do. It recovers accuracy by fine-tuning. After cutting connections, a short round of extra training lets the survivors compensate, which is why you can often remove a large fraction of the weights and still land within a whisker of the original performance. Comes in 2 flavors that matter enormously. Unstructured pruning zeros individual weights for high compression, but leaves a scattered pattern ordinary hardware can't run faster. Structured pruning removes whole units, and that's what delivers real speedups on standard chips. Alright, let's lock in what matters. This method removes the parts of a network that contribute least, shrinking it with little accuracy loss, because large models are massively over-parameterized. The classic recipe is iterative: train, score each weight's importance, often by magnitude, remove the weakest, then fine-tune to recover, and optionally repeat. You can often delete a huge fraction of weights with negligible accuracy change, which inspired the lottery ticket hypothesis about hidden trainable subnetworks. The key split is unstructured versus structured, scattered sparsity for size versus whole unit removal for real speed, and it pairs naturally with quantization and distillation. Curious how these compression tricks fit together into one pipeline? That's the kind of thing we untangle over at standarity.com. See you there.